Hello everyone, big changes are coming, and by big changes I mean new title, new music, but everything else remains more or less the same. So welcome to the first episode of the Cooldown, and for the 34th time, let's see what happened this week. Shuhei Yoshida leaves PlayStation. Game developer.com reporting, the face of PlayStation is leaving the company after 30 years. I've been with PlayStation from the beginning, Yoshida says, and after 30 years I thought, it might be my time to move on to somewhere else. Even if the company is doing really well. He continues, I love PS5, I love the games that are coming for the platform, and we have new generations of management that I respect and admire. And I'm very excited about the future of PlayStation. Sony is losing one of their most experienced and influential executives in Yoshida, a tremendous indie friend and trailblazer, and one of the truly rare figureheads actually still playing their own games, at least that's what I like to think. Yoshida was at Sony back in 1993, at a time when the PlayStation itself was still very much only in the making. He was the first employee not involved with technology in Ken Kutaragi's first development team, which at the time consisted only of engineers. Even back then, one of his tasks was to convince developers and publishers from Japan and around the world to produce for PlayStation. And obviously he was successful. You can find more anecdotes from and about Yoshida on the PlayStation blog, the link to which can be found below. In any case, I'm very curious to see where we can see him soon. Tencent released a reveal trailer for Light of Motiram, the answer to the question, what if Palworld Horizon? The open-world survival game, whose enemies, environment and general setting are strikingly reminiscent of Horizon's world, is to be released for PlayStation 5 in addition to iOS, Android and PC, which Sony will no doubt be particularly pleased about. Unlike the real Horizon, this title will have a free-to-play model, and with base building, tree harvesting and taming and training more than 100 mechanimals, the title seems like a mixture of cooperative Monster Hunter and Palworld. Up to 10 players can play together within one world. Light of Motiram is scheduled for release in the West in 2025. Star Citizen news, everyone. While the main game still hasn't made it to the alpha version 4.0, despite having been announced for years now, all the while it's still insisting to happen this year, and the announced date of 2026 for the single-player part, Squadron 42, just keeps earning tired smiles from players, TechRaptor reports that the game now has passed the 750 million mark, raking in almost $1 billion from players and buyers, because yes, those are definitely different audiences. While most of the internet makes fun of the sheer number, consider that this is the total amount which has been paying a dev team of more than 1,000 employees around the world every month for over 10 years now. What I want to say is that the figure is not quite as crazy as it's currently made out to be. Less great, according to Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming, on the social media site that has now been buried on a pet cemetery at least twice, previously known as Twitter. Former Cloud Imperium employees have been busy cutting back after the recent CitizenCon, and quote, a lot of employees have been laid off in the last 2 days without any severance pay. This, just after a mandatory 16-day week in the run-up to CitizenCon, would of course be nasty stuff, even if it hasn't been officially confirmed yet. Hey, thanks for still being here, by the way. If you like, you have the chance right now to click on the like button below. It costs you nothing, but it's probably the most important thing in the world for me, and you'd make me very happy. But only if you want to, so here we go. GamesIndustry.biz is reporting more court adventures from Phoenix Wright cosplay company Nintendo. After the giant took on software pirate Archbox during a trial, as previously reported here, Nintendo has now been awarded victory, simply by default as Archbox didn't show up in court. Now, however, Nintendo is fed up and has asked a Washington US District Court to subpoena various company documents and records in order to identify and ultimately sue more pirates. In particular, a subreddit with the extremely inconspicuous name of Switch Pirates is being targeted, with around 190k people on it who are most definitely not pirates. Also in potential future legal trouble with Nintendo are Reddit, content delivery network Cloudflare, Discord, GitHub and Google Google, as well as domain providers GoDaddy, Namecheap, and Tukos. Basically everything that is somehow related to Archbox and its immediate surroundings. Nintendo itself is saying the defendant was a main moderator of the Switch Pirates community, and Nintendo has reason to believe that other accounts in the community were also controlled by him or collaborated with him. All of these subpoenas are intended to find out relevant information for Nintendo of America to pursue further violations. With Nintendo already having had emulator Ryujinx shot to the moon earlier this year, and emulation-related YouTube channels also copyright claimed right into the ground, one could speculate that someone is desperate to secure a new console launch that would be surprisingly easy to get onto other people's screens with emulators of the previous console generation. But that, my children, is just speculation. A game speculation. Also sourced from the rumor mill come new leaks regarding Nintendo's new hardware itself, the successor to the Switch. WCCF Tech reports on a post on the Chinese message board Weibo, which claims to confirm that Nintendo's new console will be shown for the first time in January and will be launched shortly afterwards, in March 2025. Over 650,000 units have already been shipped to various regions, and a huge number of components have been in production since September. Now you might wonder why a random post on Weibo is the reason for the fuss, but in this case, according to WCCF, it looks at least promising. The leaker has a very good reputation within various leak and rumor communities and already has correctly predicted many Nintendo announcements in the past, such as Legend of Heroes or Dragon Quest remakes word for word. And the dates don't sound that unlikely either. After all, it has to happen sometime. Minecraft Roll for Adventure will be a new tabletop RPG from Matt Forbeck, designer of the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, and Marty Forbeck, son of the designer of the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. The first adventure, with the certainly simple rules and 4 6-sided dice included, and the book can be played as a solo game but can also be easily adapted for a game master. The Temple of the Charged Creeper, as a hardcover version, is available for pre-order in various stores for $20. Link is somewhere down in the description. Those who prefer to work digitally for their role-playing sessions and are enthusiastic users of Wizards' complete online package for players and game masters, D&D Beyond, will also be pleased. The official Lord of the Rings role-playing game is also now available on Beyond. The game's based on the One Ring tabletop role-playing game, developed by the Swedish developer Free League, and is certainly one of the most popular, if not the most popular, role-playing game setting for Lord of the Rings fans. Now it can be easily integrated into D&D's own D20 virtual tabletop. The whole thing comes with the full 240-page core rulebook, whose rules, classes, and explanation can also be accessed in Beyond's character creation. There are also adventures available for levels 1 to 10, also fully compatible with the familiar virtual environment. The package is available in the Beyond store for $30. You'll find a link in the video description. Elon Musk, who is still mad at alarm clocks because they make woke, now wants to expand his inventory to video games. With the highly imaginative slogan "Make Games Great Again", the billionaire now wants to set up his own game studio, which presumably means buying in, which will produce new AI-based gaming hits. How, what, where, and who are typical Elon questions that someone else can ask themselves. The main thing is that it doesn't become one of the mainstream studios, which according to Musk are all ideologically captured. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he nevertheless introduces his new studio within the next 1 to 2 months through the sheer power of silly announcements. Among other things, Musk complains about how the majority of game studios are owned by massive corporations, which firstly of course is complete nonsense, and secondly he's still the richest person in the world, so if XAI gets a studio off the ground, it's by definition owned by a massive corporation. As Forbes also reports, the question of what exactly an AI game studio and even entails is largely unclear, as is the answer to the fundamental problem of who should even apply to a studio as a developer if the studio is to use artificial intelligence as a developer. I think, like so many questions about Musk, 90% can be explained again with pure hubris and ill-considered choice of words, and the remaining 10% with the billions already mentioned. We'll see. A render of the successor to the Steam controller has surfaced on social media after it was found in the latest Steam VR drivers. And Valve has apparently taken a very close look at its own Steam Deck and is now using the new edition of the controller for kind of a hardware language on its own, because the similarities are undeniable. In contrast to the first controller, here we have a very traditional 2-stick layout with a traditional directional pad, and instead of the previous trackpad D-pad combination, 2 small trackpads under each stick. The whole thing definitely makes sense. Unifying your own hardware is certainly a lot more practical for the Steam library than having completely different control schemes fighting against each other, but the original version of the controller definitely had a lot of fans, and even if this new version looks much more mass compatible, a few people will surely be annoyed about Valve preferring to moving closer to the mainstream. The 2K launcher, which I legitimately didn't even know existed, no longer exists. Previously, games on Steam were also launched via the launcher. Now 2K has apparently realized that they are not doing their own games any favors here, as there had been repeated complaints about performance and difficulties, among other things. However, players have to take a few steps to get rid of the thing completely, for which there is a separate article on the corresponding official support page. The whole thing is basically not very complex, but some games are the exception to the rule. If you play Mafia, Civilization, or XCOM for example, it will be a little more difficult if you want the launcher to work, or not to work. You can find the support page below the video. The world first for the latest, most difficult raid in Final Fantasy XIV has been completed. Futures Rewritten Ultimate, known in the community as FRU, has been completed after 3 days, and in best traditions, seems to be involved in another cheating scandal. A world first, meaning the first complete playthrough including all bosses of an MMORPG instance or a raid, usually commands respect, especially in Final Fantasy XIV, where producer and mascot Naoki Yoshida also likes to personally and publicly congratulate the respective guilds. Prestige plays a huge role. Cheat software was already used in the previous hardest raid, and the corresponding world first discovered through a video in which someone actively used various hacks. And this was followed by individual bans and the removal of rewards and achievements for everyone involved. This time, apparently not by accident, there was no live stream, but one of the participants subsequently posted a screenshot on the Animal Crossing home being abandoned for 4 years, formerly known as Twitter, of his glorious squad after the final boss fight, and user Nag noticed a small, inconspicuous red dot. The poster of the image took everything offline in a flash, but as we all know, even a flash isn't fast enough for the internet. The screenshot was saved and downloaded a long time ago, and points, thanks to Reset Era for the explanations, to the Pixel Perfect Plus cheat software, with which players can place this red dot on their screen relative to the center of the screen, so that the safe pixel under the character is always being tracked despite all rotation and movement of your character. Due to the extremely fortunate decision not to stream, there is no evidence of other cheat software, but also no counter evidence that could speak for a legitimate passage. However, the immediate deletion of the screens probably speak for a rather dubiously legal playthrough of the raid, and I have already contacted the authorities. GameSpot's Mark Delaney reports on the new game from Section 9 Interactive, the new studio of former people behind the Little Nightmares series. In a deal with Epic Games, the as yet unnamed new title will be released on PC and console, and will feature at least some of the Little Nightmares aesthetics. The game is not supposed to be a horror game, but a sci-fi action-adventure built with Unreal Engine 5, which doesn't help making the first trailer look less creepy. Unsurprisingly, there is no release date yet. Also found on GameSpot, Nintendo, along with hardware release partner Tencent, will discontinue its entire eShop as well as all Nintendo Switch online services in China in early 2026. This decision comes shortly after a new law change by the Chinese government that will prohibit children from spending more than 1 hour a day playing online games. However, Nintendo does not confirm that the eShop shutdown and that of all network functions has anything to do with this regulation. Either way, Nintendo will shut down the whole shebang on April 1st, 2026, starting with the eShop itself. This means that neither games nor demos will be available within China anymore. This will be followed on May 15 by the functionality of online codes that allow unlocking DLC or other items. All other network services will also cease to exist on the same day. Players in China who use the WeChat social media website can claim up to 4 free games as compensation. How and whether this change to Nintendo's ecosystem will extend to the Switch successor is not yet known. According to Eurogamer, just 2 of the 45 best-selling games in Google's Play Store managed to meet the current UK standards for description and clarity of loot boxes in advertising. The most popular titles are still advertised without any information about loot boxes and similar mechanics. This was highlighted by an investigation of the BBC, which looked at the 45 highest-earning games in the Google Play Store. Just 26 games mentioned the existence of loot boxes at all, 22 of which were actively advertised at the same time. Only 2 of these 22 games have explained and displayed these loot boxes in their advertisements, according to current regulations in the country. These regulations were drawn up by the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, which can and will theoretically block games that fail to clarify whether a game contains loot boxes and remove them from the stores in the future. However, researchers and observers in the field say the ASA lacks teeth in this regard. According to reports, they only pay a short visit to the relevant companies, wag their fingers vigorously, but the manufacturers don't care that much really. Apparently we keep talking about the same topics over and over again in the last few episodes, because as soon as I had the Lupin III and Cat's Eye connection out of the way last time, the next anime is already announced. Lupin III, the movie, is the working title of a brand new movie starring everyone's favorite thief. This would be the first 2D movie in the series in the last 30 years or so. The last one was Lupin III, Dead or Alive in 1996. The movie will be directed by Takeshi Koike, with Yuya Takahashi taking care of the script and story. Koike has already directed 3 previous CGI films between 2014 and 2019, so I'm looking forward to it. In other anime news, the long-awaited TV adaptation of the web manga The Summer Hikaru Died, a horror slice of life series, has been announced for 2025 for Netflix. The anime will be animated and produced by Cygames, who are usually on the higher end of studios. The manga by Mokumo Kuren has been running on Young Ace Up, Kadokawa's website for seinen magazine Young Ace, since 2021. Charted both nationally and internationally, was nominated for an Eisner Award, and the first anthology sold millions of copies. The anime therefore understandably comes with high expectations. And even more anime. A new featurette on YouTube provides more information about Warner's Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim anime, which will be shown in cinemas in mid-December and is mainly dedicated to the story of Helm Hammerhand and his daughter Hera. There are some new insights from Kenji Kamayama, the film's director, various producers and some of the cast, as well as, of course, heaps of fantastic looking moving images from the production. A link to the video is, of course, in the video description. Videocards.com reports on a very special livestream from the Brazilian website Pichau, in which viewers were allowed to ask questions to all those involved in the stream itself. Now what happens is, one of those people was an Inno3D Brazil representative, and she might have slipped a bit regarding the upcoming RTX cards. In very clear terms, she mentioned that the RTX 5090 should be available in just under 3 weeks, but quickly corrected herself and instead nervously said that the new Nvidia card should only officially debut at CES 2025 in January. This is not necessarily an official confirmation, but could very well mean that Inno3D and other hardware manufacturers might have such cards, probably only test samples, but perhaps also third-party market productions, ready for the market within the next 3 weeks. So you better start saving if you need a new graphics card for your next PC. Gamestop is closing all its stores in Germany. According to Gameswirtschaft.de, only 70 of the former 200 Gamestops in Germany were still open. Those are also now expected to be closed at the beginning of 2025. According to the latest information from Gameswirtschaft, this only applies to retail stores. The situation for online stores is still unclear. If all of this turns out to be true, GameStop's Christmas sales will actually be more of a seasonal clearance sale, as all stores are due to close on January 31. This is not particularly surprising, as more than 100 stores have already been closed down in 2024, and all GameStops in Italy also have just been sold and converted into the competitor brand GameLife. The main reason for this seems to be a lot of red figures, also the trend towards download and direct sales, as well as the current lack of interest in buying used hardware and software. As far as the closures themselves are concerned, GameStop store managers in Germany were the first to find out. Over the course of Thursday, various employees of different GameStops have already communicated the upcoming closure to customers. Pre-orders will apparently no longer be accepted nationwide, as won't the sale of vouchers. The good news I mean, if games continue to be available on discs, at least in the next few years, this could mean a return of the good old privately run brick-and-mortar game stores, but I may just be overly optimistic. Okay, I think we're done again. I think that should be it. Let me know in the comments what you think of the new look and of the English version. Is it alright? Is it fine? Can you actually listen to this? I mean, if you like it, you can also reply exclusively in emotes, I don't care. Otherwise, don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you liked it. And if that's the case, I'm of course very happy. I'm Tiku, this was This Week in Review. See you next time back in the cooldown. Until then, take care and stay caring. This change to Nintendo's ecosystem will extend to the Twitch. What am I writing? How and whether this...